Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. I'm just going to give everybody a minute to settle in, and we'll get going in the next minute. Thank you all for joining and for joining on time. It doesn't. Right, is that doing anything? Not yet. Okay. Right. Thank you all for joining us and welcome to everybody. I do want to get started because we have two presenters today. So I do want to let them have their chance to speak and talk, and we can have some questions afterwards. I'm going to stop sharing because that's not displaying how I wanted it to. But hi and welcome. I'm going to briefly put my camera on just to say hello to everybody. Hi, my name is Ashley. If you don't know me, I am the entomology early career representative for the ESSA committee, and I'm a postdoc at Wits University. So this is the second of our webinar series on careers. Thank you to all of those who attended our first webinar that was earlier in March. We had some really great feedback from that. Thank you for those. And I'm thrilled to hear that those who were really inspired by the academic talk. And I thank those who said that they wanted more context within the entomology field. So that's why I'm thrilled today to have two entomology professionals joining us to share their experience and their journey transitioning from academia into industry. I will also have another feedback form at the end of this webinar that you can put in your suggestions if you have any ideas for webinars that would interest you, whether that's grant writing, scientific paper writing, any topic that you're interested in, please do let me know. My contact details will also be there, so you can send those through to me. Right. So without further ado, I think let's just crack on. I want to welcome Kayla as our first speaker, and I'm going to hand directly over to her. Kayla, if you want to start booting up,
sure,
you can do that.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to put my camera briefly on so that you all can see me. And just apologies, I am coming to you from field live at the moment, so just bear with me. And let me just get my presentation shared quickly. Oops, wrong one. There we go. Right, just minimize that. And can you all see my slides and hear me?
Yes,
Everything good?
it's not in presenter mode yet on my side, at least. Oh, I see it is on my second screen.
Okay, cool. All right. I'm gonna chat to you all a bit about my experience in academia and industry. So I'm just gonna give you just a quick rundown about me and my background. So I'm primarily an applied entomologist. My background is in applied entomology. At the moment, I'm more of a research manager. I've just handed in my PhD in entomology. I have 6 years experience in forestry and 4 years for my PhD in medical entomology. And then I have about 6 months now in agriculture in macadamias. So I just want to go through how I got to where I am. So for my career path, what I did is I did a BSc entomology. And then in my third year, I found that a timber company, Sappi, was looking for a forest entomologist. At the time, I was doing my third year, but I reached out to them and I said, listen, I'm interested. Would you guys be willing to wait for me? And they said, sure, but then go do a postgrad diploma in forestry at Stellenbosch. So I went and did that. And then then I went over to SAPI and I started in industry. And while I was in industry, I did my master's in entomology part-time. I was in forestry for about 6 years. And then I went over to do my PhD full-time at WITS. And I've basically just finished that this year. But for the last 6 months, I've been at SAMAC doing risk mitigation research management at Macadamia, South Africa. So that's just the way that I've sort of gone about in my career. And then I just wanted to talk to you guys about what I enjoy about industry. So for me, the primary thing for me is I feel like the value in research really lies in the practical implementation thereof. So I love research, but I love applying it a lot more. I like having to do something with it. So my passion really lies in taking research and then putting it out in field. Um, and as part of that is the opportunity to make a measurable difference somewhere, either in someone's life or in how the world works, just putting my mark out there and making a difference. The other thing I really enjoy about industry is just the variety in the day-to-day activities. No 2 days are alike. You get hit with new interesting things almost on a weekly basis. So there's new challenges every week, which I find really stimulating for me. Um, so just I wanted to show you a couple of photos. So in terms of the practical application of research is this top photo. You see a lot of yellow traps. That's one of the projects that we did at SAPI. Researchers at FABI at the time were doing research into pheromones for a wood-boring moth pest in forestry. We took that research and its preliminary results. We looked at it. We want to apply this, but we're going to go big. And so we rolled out about 6,000 traps in a mass trapping program using that research and put it out into the field. And that was like 3 years of my life is these traps and doing the assessments afterwards, seeing if it worked, that kind of thing. That was a very big project. I enjoyed it so much. It was also part of my master's work. And yeah, just some of these other things is just taking research that come out of the universities and applying it in field. People that do parasitoid research on parasitoids that they go and get from Australia. They do the host spec testing here, and we try it out in field and see if it works. And we put traps out, we put pheromones out. This was for Cyrex, which is a wood-boring wasp in forestry. This was for Euproctis terminalis. That's also a pine pest. This was for the pine emperor moth. We had to get creative with the traps, or rather Fabi had to get creative with the traps because it's a much bigger moth. And then there are cool things in industry as well where new technologies are coming in and you can start doing chemical sprays with drones, which saves you the time of having to walk up and down, which is really nice. So the other thing about industry is there's also a lot of challenges, certainly. So from my side, what I've experienced is at the end of the day, it's the big picture that matters. So for that mass trapping program, at the end of the day, the question was, is this going to work? Yes or no? On the probability of balance, yes, it's going to work. Okay, let's roll it out and see what it does. Um, so for me, it was also a mindset change from the very detailed minutia of research and making sure every little bit ticks and is perfectly right, to getting sort of a big picture rather, mindset or mind frame. Then the other thing is in industry, you're not just a researcher though, you also deal with a lot of other aspects. So you need to be able to deal with budgets and audits. Often you need to sort of, I say, sell your research, but you need to motivate to like the managing directors or the general managers why you think a project is a good idea. And often you'll need to tell them your crop is supposed to have X amount of profit. This pest is costing you this much. This research will cost you that much. And then they will see the value in it, and you need to be able to motivate for that. It's also a lot of people management, contractors and staff and all that, hiring and interviews. So there's HR aspects to it, there's business sense to it. You always need to be aware of safety protocols, a lot of paperwork and logbooks. And you need to learn how to successfully navigate interpersonal relationships and network. You need to engage with stakeholders. There's often legislation and regulations that you need to adhere to. So it's a whole basket of things. You don't just do research itself. So there's a lot of other stuff that goes with it, which can be challenging. And I've got a few more points. The other challenge is to take that research that come out of the research institutions and find a way to practically apply it and do it in such a way that it's cost effective. Because at the end of the day, big picture is, um, you want to save money, but you also want to um, sort out the problem at the end of the day. So that can be challenging to find a way that makes it most cost effective. And in some of the industry careers, fieldwork is a reality. You spend long hours on the road and in the field, early mornings up before the sun. And often when you get back after field, you'll need to catch up on admin late into the evening. And sometimes the environmental conditions in field can be a bit harsh. It can be quite hot, especially if you're in Zululand. So that's just some of the things as well. Time management, you only have so many hours in the day, so you'll need to learn how to manage your time and prioritize what's important. And for example, in terms of effective allocation of limited resources, we were a team of about 3 people at SAPI, so we needed to decide what's a priority, how are we going to spend our manpower, how are we going to tackle 3 provinces, because our team had to cover Mpumalanga, KwaZulu-Natal, and a bit of the Eastern Cape as well, to cover those plantations. So you need to plan how you're going to allocate your time. So I've just got a few photos of the challenges. For that mass trapping project that I spoke about, after the first year, we realized a lot of the traps were going missing, and we realized it was because of theft and because these bucket funnel traps are being used as water buckets. So in the second year, we had to drill holes in 6,000 traps so that the water would drain out, so it would be less appealing to steal. There's a lot of getting stuck when you're doing field work, a lot, and you'll often go down a road and then you'll see the river has flooded the road and you need to find another way around. So these are some challenges that you can face. I just put a photo here that Fabi and SA Forestry put a poster together in terms of, allocating resources. Is because we're such a small team, we had to come up with a way where we can cover a lot more ground, a lot more effectively. And the way we did that is we rope in the foresters and we train them and tell them this is what you need to look for. And if you see something, let me know. So we made flashcards, we made posters, we had roadshows to go and train them on things and took them out to field to show them so that we can have boots on the ground that can report back to us so that we can have eyes everywhere else. And you'll see me there at the bottom in a lovely little orange pack. This is Zululand, 5 o'clock in the morning, and you're doing a chemical spray for a research trial. And because of, the safety protocols and everything, you have to have all the safety stuff equipped. But like at 10 o'clock, it's like going at like 35, 36 degrees. So it can be a bit of a challenge. So yeah, interesting days. So then when I went back to academia, I found because I was in forestry and I did such a pivot from forestry through to medical entomology, I didn't really have any lab skills or anything. But I had a lot of soft skills that I had and a lot of field experience. And the industry experience that I'd built up helped me in quite a big way. So industry taught me, self-discipline, when to work, how to work, taught me independence, to go on my own, so that I can get going with whatever I needed to do. I had exposure to professional environments, so that helped me to navigate interpersonal relationships and do conflict management, um, diplomacy and all that. Gave me management experience so that I know what's expected of me and that kind of thing. And then it also helped me in industry, you often, when a research trial is panned out or you found something new in field, you'll write a paper about it. So by the time I'd gone back to academia to write my PhD, I already had two published papers. So I had some experience in writing. And now with working in agriculture, I started learning a lot more how to break it down, especially for farmers so that they can understand the technical jargon that's coming out of the research, and you can break it down to them and explain to them, okay, well, a sapsucker is essentially a plant vampire, so it just sucks the tree dry. So then they understand, oh, okay, so that's what's going to happen to my tree if I don't, sort it out. So yeah, that's how industry helped me adjust to academia, and industry also helped me, to be open to collaboration and go for, teamwork and that kind of thing. Because in research, you can often be, in your little bubble doing your own thing. And industry, you really need to pull all the resources you can and to do teamwork. So yeah. So this is just some photos from my PhD. I'm big on making an impact on in people's lives, and I loved working on malaria and malaria mosquitoes. My colleague here is explaining what this trap is to the kids over there, and that's basically a CO2 trap to catch mosquitoes in. Also had the opportunity to go to Zambia about 3 years ago for ice. Uh, to help with the chemical, not chemical, insecticide resistant stuff in Zambia for malaria mosquitoes. So colleague and I went through to Zambia to help the guys out there to determine insecticide resistance of the local malaria populations, and really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed going into the local communities and being able to help them in that regard. That was a real kick for me, is to help out there. Yeah, and then after that, after my PhD, I was looking for to go back into industry. I love being in industry and doing the practical implementation. And so I landed up in agriculture in macadamias. And I found that my time in my PhD also taught me a lot of things that help me now in industry again. So I'm gotten a lot better at my own time management, and I got an understanding of how research is conducted at a much higher level. What are the processes that are involved there? How does it work? I got connections with institutions and universities and so on. So I know who to reach out to if I need a research project done, and you gain a researcher's perspective, so you know what their challenges are, you know what their perspective is and where they're coming from, so you can meet them in the middle and accommodate their challenges. If you need them to do a research project, you can understand what their perspective is, what kind of institutional procedures they need to go through, especially with admin and that kind of thing. You understand why there might be delays and things, or yeah, anything in that regard. And it also obviously it taught me even better scientific communication going through my PhD, writing up and getting that message across. Yeah, and then just some photos from my time in macadamia so far. It's been a busy 6 months. At the moment I'm in field, so yeah. Um, and then I just wanted to close off and say, the way that I navigated the gap between is I think you should use the opportunities that come your way, and I think you should go look for them as well. Take that chance. They've got nothing to lose, just reaching out and asking, you know, are you guys looking for someone? Like, are you looking for a forest entomologist? Are you willing to wait for me if you're still studying? That kind of thing. Grab those opportunities and go and look for them. And I also think that the soft skills that you develop are invaluable, and they will take you far. Especially if you have got really good interpersonal relationship skills, that will really work really well for you. Networking is also key, so that you know who's in industry, who's in research, and who can you reach out to and press on their buttons if you need help with something, if you need advice. So that's always nice. And then I think both academia and industry are very valuable for solving problems, and I do think that they should work together because um, they've both got something to gain from each other, and I think the two of them working together will hopefully help sort out our pest and disease problems. Yeah, so that's basically my story. I don't know if you want to do questions now, Ashley, or a bit later, but yeah, that's my story.
Thank you so much, Kayla. I'd love to do questions. If you can stay with us, if you need to go, what's it looking like on your side?
Yeah, I think I might need to run. I'll see and keep you up to date.
Okay.
Let me just check my battery here. It's about
Realities of
half.
the field. Ocean. Okay.
I'll stick around for a bit and then we'll take it from there.
Great. If anyone has any questions for Kayla, please do voice them now.
Oh, let me stop sharing my screen.
Otherwise, we will have a dedicated session after both talks. Let me just check this Q&A. Oh, there is a question here, Kayla. Kayla, do you feel your work has more immediate impact in industry compared to academia?
Unmute. In industry, not necessarily, because when I was doing my PhD, I had the opportunity to go through to Zambia, and I feel like I did make an impact there. I personally love industry and the impact I'm making here, and I think I may personally have made a bit more of an impact in industry because I spent more time in industry. But I think you can still make a significant impact in academia as well. I hope that answers the question.
Perfect. We have a second question from Nina. Do you think there are lots
Yes.
of opportunities in industry that maybe current students don't know about?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if I can just say, at SAPI, I was the only entomologist in the company, and there's I don't know, there's 3 provinces full of forestry. So I think there are opportunities, and you need to go look for them. I can say agriculture really needs some entomologists as well. Forestry definitely needs entomologists. So you can try industries like, I don't know, pecan industry, sugar industry, anything in agriculture, row crops. I'm sure SAPI would love to have more entomologists on board. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it's a good question because when I was starting out, I didn't realize, what is available out there, and it's quite wide, I think. Wherever there's a plant, there's a bug, and people will want someone to look at that bug and sort it out for them, if I can say that.
True. Right. Are there any final questions for Kayla? If there are, please do pop them in the chat. And I think we will move on to Megan's talk. Kayla, we will release you. If you can stick around, that would be wonderful.
I'll stick around for a bit and see
how you go.
It goes. Yeah.
I think there are some more. If you'd like to answer questions by text in the Q&A, you can do that. Thanks, Kayla.
Sure.
Great. Next, we have Megan. I'm just going to hand straight over to you. Go ahead. Thanks very much.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ashley. So hi, everybody. My name's Megan. I'm just popping on my camera for you to just get a good look at my face. So I actually work in the agricultural industry as well. I work for a company called River Bioscience, and we focus mostly on citrus and then other fruit and nut crops. So yeah, I will just turn off my camera and then share my presentation. If you guys can just let me know if it pops up, that will be great.
Yep, it's loading.
Okay.
It is in presenter mode.
There we go.
Yeah, okay. That's it.
Okay, so hi everybody. Ashley kindly approached me a couple of weeks ago to see if I would be available to have a chat about my experience in working in industry and sort of how I came to be in the position that I am now. So a little bit of background about myself. So I grew up in Scotland and KwaZulu-Natal on a sugarcane farm. So yeah, from a very young age, I was always interested in farming. I loved growing up on a farm, and I've always enjoyed the outdoors and nature. I was fortunate in Scotland to be able to do a lot of scuba diving when I was young. It was part of our school curriculum, and you know, just sort of solidified my love for the outdoors and nature. However, I was never a natural born entomologist. You know, throughout my studies as an entomologist, I realized that some people are really just born with a love of insects. You know, they collect insects as a kid, they do all of these entomology related activities, but that was never me. I really had more interest in fine arts and, as I said, sort of the scuba diving, marine sciences. But none of my family really had a background in sciences. You know, only one of my immediate family had been to university before, and I didn't really know that much about science as a career path, should I say. But anyway, I matriculated from Scotland High School and was accepted to Rhodes University and actually for a master's degree. However, I did actually make the decision to switch to a BSc after playing a little bit of catch up on a gap year in the UK for a year after school. And that was really because I was actually a year young for school. I didn't feel ready to go off and be in university just yet. I took some time out of school to sort of, you know, be a bit more independent and figure out what I wanted to do. And I decided to switch to a BSc after that. So I'm going to maybe approach this slightly differently to Kayla, because I have had a couple of students come to me and ask me, you know, how do they get an industry and what was my sort of academic path or journey. So I'm going to maybe talk about how I got into industry, focusing on my personal experiences and just highlighting some things that, you know, I think were very useful for me or not so useful for me as I sort of proceeded towards a career in industry. So as I mentioned, I matriculated in 2008. I really did not know what I wanted to do after school. I did a really broad range of subjects. I took extra subjects because I just, you know, I was interested in lots of different things and I didn't know what to do. So on the one side, it was like art and history and anthropology, all of that sort of thing. And then the other side was science and biology that I was interested in. However, that gap year was very instrumental to me, and I think it really highlights how important it can be to, you know, take a step back when you're unsure and really think through your decisions. Next, after matriculating and after taking a year off, I went to Rhodes University. This period was also characterized by a lot of uncertainty. I had initially planned to do a environmental science and marine biology degree. And then sort of halfway through, I pivoted and found my love of insects. And you know, this involved a little bit of experimentation, a little bit of flexibility, trying to figure out where my niche or interest in sciences lay. But I really just, you know, found entomology, and I think it came to be similar to how it comes to a lot of people who, you know, find a love for insects. In that it was, we did so in Rhodes University, you do a small entomology module in first year, and then you go on to do entomology in second year if you're interested in it. And that first module that we did focused a little bit on different collections and looking at different orders and species and genera of insects, and just learning a little bit about the background of entomology. And for me, entomology just opened up a whole new world of like tiny things that helped me learn more about the environment around me. And I just really enjoyed it. So I did something that maybe wasn't so advisable at the time. I took entomology in second year as an extra subject. That actually proved to be quite difficult. It turns out taking extra subjects in high school and extra subjects in university are two different things. So second year was quite difficult for me. I didn't do well in all my subjects, but it just really solidified my love for entomology. And that came together with, you know, being able to do field work, being in the outdoors, you know, seeing how different experimental designs can really impact the outcomes of your research. So yeah, I ended up graduating with a degree in entomology and botany, mostly because I was interested in plant-insect interactions, not necessarily botany in and of itself, but how the interface between plants and insects happen. So I then went on to do my BSc honours also at Rhodes University. And this honours year really was made such a big difference in my life. It really made me think differently about academia and the type of work that I wanted to be in. I think if there are any undergrad students here who really want to pursue any type of career in entomology or agriculture or industry in general, I think doing your BSc honours is really advisable, even if you don't go further. During my ESC honours, I did one project in pollination biology, again, that plant-insect interactions. And then I sort of branched out into forensic science, looking at post-mortem with different species of flies that we have in South Africa. So the projects for me in that year weren't as important as the actual experience was. It was a very intensive year. You know, it was one of I think I learned the most during this year just because you go into so many different types of modules and subjects, and because you get to really learn about the research process with doing these projects. I think that was instrumental because some of the mentorship provided by Professor Martin Gill at Rhodes University, and his sort of advice was study with a purpose. Don't just do something because it's there and it seems nice. You know, think about what you're doing when you embark on a research project, and really try and understand how is this going to take me forward in my career. And that idea of studying with purpose was very instrumental. In our BSc honours year, we also had the opportunity to attend the ESSA conference in Potchefstroom. And during that conference, we were encouraged as an class to go out and network and meet people in other industries. Through this, I was introduced to SASRI, and that actually helped me to go forward with my studies. Because when I met with SASRI there at some of the professors and the researchers at SASRI there at the ESSA conference, they said, you know, they're really looking for new students coming in who are interested in sugarcane projects, you know, different purposes. So I specifically in all the applied stuff, so in integrated pest management. And through this, I was put into touch with Dr. Des Conlon. He invited me to come and work with him to do an MSc degree through Rhodes University and SASRI. At this point, I actually moved away from Rhodes. I moved back to KZN, obviously KZN being where all the sugarcane is growing. And that move actually helped me quite a lot. You know, it separated me from my little comfort zone there at Rhodes University and exposed me to more people. I think that opportunity to network is really something that should try and both hands when it's available. So going to things and then, you know, maybe removing yourself from any comfort zone that you might be settling into. With SASRI, I did my MSc thesis in the push-pull strategy for sugarcane, so looking at habitat management to try and control different species of Saccharina in sugarcane. So, you know, using different plants that emit different volatiles to try and manipulate this pest in the environment. With this, it actually introduced a lot more to intensive field work. So Kayla did mention it, and I had a little giggle there where she said, you know, when you're doing field work, be prepared to get stuck, because that is 100% true. Any of the people who we work with here at River Bioscience can attest to that. But also field work is difficult. It's hot, it's sweaty, and, you know, you can come to resent it a little bit right in the middle of the summer season. However, getting out there into the actual environment and seeing these vital in my opinion. So if you have the opportunity to incorporate field work into your projects, I think it's really beneficial, especially if you're wanting to go into agriculture in the long run. Okay. So after my MSc degree, I ended up going to do a PhD at LSU. And this is another opportunity my way through just networking and trying to seize opportunities as they present themselves. So through my MSc degree, obviously I met quite a few researchers at SASRI, Dr. Des Conlon, and then Stuart Rutherford had my MSc gone over to the US to connect with some science at Louisiana State University. And they came, you know, an opportunity to ask them went, what they do, were there any other potential opportunities in the States, and could they put me in touch with anybody? And they put me in touch with the scientist who was looking for a potential student, and I basically just applied, on the off chance I have my MSc degree just yet, but I had something that had funding and they invited to come and there. So studying in the States is quite interesting. Often they don't accept graduate students unless there is funding. Often that funding actually does pay for your tuition, as well as provide you with a stipend for living expenses. So that's really awesome means to do your PhD without, potentially incurring a lot of financial cost yourself. But you have to be willing to put yourself out there. And the best way to go overseas, I would say, is to reach out to professors individually to ask them, hey, do you have any positions available funding to apply for? But that move to LSU was quite hard. I left my partner here in South Africa, who's in technology. Obviously, you have to meet new people, a new research culture, new plants and insects that you don't know anything about, and then having to set yourself up in a foreign country. Very, very acting as well. I also focused on applied entomology there. I think I really found for me what I was wanting to time on, which is practical side of entomology, which Kayla also said. I definitely challenged myself while I was there to learn new skills. So instead of working in a sugarcane, like they offered me a sugarcane project, but instead of working in sugarcane, I switched over to rice integrated pest management. Rice is a crop grown in Louisiana. And then I also did projects on sorghum, projects on soybeans, projects also on sugarcane a little bit, and then grow crops that are more minor that side. So yeah, this really gave me an opportunity to increase my skills in other crops, learn new techniques in the field. And then I also tried to incorporate some new technologies, like the drone work, using imagery to identify pests, etc. A big thing for me in doing my PhD was actually gaining experience in outreach, collaboration, knowledge transfer. So providing myself with opportunities to do more speaking, to reach out to other universities, to get to know people in the industry that side, and then also teaching farmers how to implement some of the knowledge that we were generating. I think that this experience really helped me to be hired back here in South Africa, because on your CV in industry, they want to be able to see that you can work in teams and that you are able to take that research that you're developing and actually tell people about it. So this is just a couple of photos from my time at LSU. I met some really amazing people there and learned a lot about other cultures and other ways of actually doing research. I think that this helps to, build a better understanding of how our research can be applicable in the world. As I mentioned, I did some work with drones and imagery. I'm not going to go into a lot of the types of research that I did, but I actually decided to do a statistics minor. So in the US, you get your PhD in entomology, but you can also do a minor in a different subject. This was actually really helpful for me because during my undergrad, when I was struggling with taking too many subjects, I actually did very poorly in statistics and I failed one of those courses. And I use this opportunity now to be able to understand statistics better and to be able to apply it to field research. So for me, that was a big growth opportunity. And it was, quite a difficult decision because I had just written off statistics as a subject that I could do. But here we looked at, how different frequencies of light refracted from the crop can be used to determine the yields of rice, using drone work. So yeah, that work in statistics at the end, really helped me to build some very interesting models on how, we can use imagery to figure out what the rice is yielding. Yeah, you can see us in the field. So again, with field work, it's very sweaty, very hard work, but very rewarding. And over in the corner over here, we've got a picture of me just presenting some of my work. The best thing about studying overseas is that there's a lot more funding to actually go to different meetings or workshops or conferences. And I took every opportunity I could to actually go and present the work, because I knew that I wanted to work in an outreach kind of setting, talking about how to implement various pest management techniques on farms. And to be able to do that, you need to be able to think quickly on your feet, be able to take the research that you're working on and make it applicable in layman's terms, and then to be able to reassure people that these methods, especially biological controls, actually do work. And this was my main study species, which was the rice water weevil, and I also worked on various stem boring pests, which was nice as well. So it all culminated in my dissertation, which looked at IPM and insecticidal seed treatments in Louisiana rice, also looking at different cultural control techniques that you could integrate with insecticidal seed treatments, and then looking at alternative means for monitoring the pests. It was a very rewarding experience, but when I went to Louisiana, I did it with a purpose, as Martin had always said. I had decided to go through to the States, but I always wanted to come back home to South Africa to work in the agricultural industry here in South Africa. So taking the things that I learned in Louisiana and applying them here at home. So yeah, after this exit seminar in 2021, I eventually graduated and then returned to South Africa in 2022. Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to highlight my river bioscience experience onwards there, so just a slight flaw. But after I finished my PhD, basically what I did is I put out on LinkedIn that I was looking for opportunities in South Africa, and that I was open to both academia and industry. I was in the fortunate position that I was offered a postdoc at Rhodes University when I was finished up with my PhD. But around about the same time, one of the ExCom members here at River Bioscience saw that I was open to work on LinkedIn. He reached out to me and said that they had a position available for a technical manager, and would I be interested to interview. So I did interview and they offered me the job. And for me, it was actually a huge decision to go into industry, because I loved research and I loved the type of work that I could do in academia. And the postdoc that I was offered was in a project that I was interested in. So it was very difficult to decide whether to move to academia, but at the end of the day, the opportunities for better stability in terms of salary, etc., and then also the growth opportunities were important for me for making the switch to industry. It was a new field of research for me. So previously, I'd mostly worked in row crops, but River Bioscience, as I mentioned previously, focuses on citrus and other fruit and nut crops. So yeah, very different for me. I was quite nervous, but that difference allowed me to say, okay, well, this is going to allow me to grow. It's going to get me into contact with new people and be involved in a completely different type of work. And through the job at River Bioscience, I've gained managerial and industry experience. So I'm just going to talk about a little bit about my time at River Bioscience. I've been here for about 3 years. I was originally employed as a technical manager, but then I became the research and technical manager when we moved to our new head offices here in Port Elizabeth. So as part of my role, I help to manage the product development and innovation department here at River Biosciences. So we have labs based here in Port Elizabeth. We have a macrobial department. So the macrobial department focuses on our insect cultures and our biological control agents. And then our microbial department, which focuses more on, insect viruses, other diseases, fungi, etc. I also do a lot of presenting and training, both at industry events. So this is training with various different agents around the country. So these agents are the people who actually sell products to the farmers. So I'll go through and train them on our products and train them how to integrate them into farming practices. And then also at research days and events. So I had actually met Kayla before at the pecan nut industry day, where I spoke about false codling moth management and carrot moth management and pecan nuts. So yeah, various different opportunities for me to use that outreach experience that I gained doing my PhD. And then I'm also heavily involved in helping with the marketing and sale of our product. So lots of different avenues that I'm involved in at River Bioscience. But just a little background on River Bioscience. We're actually a commercial company, but we're owned by a growers association. So we're grower owned through the Citrus Growers Association, and the Citrus Growers Association falls within the South African fruit industry structure. So under South African fruit, we've got hawk grow, we've got things like Satie subcrop, etc. So these are all different industries that deal with table grapes, for instance, or other like blueberries, or the nut industries are also involved in this area. So it's a bunch of different basically growers owned associations or industries that now fall into Fruit South Africa. So I just put this here because it does indicate that there's lots of different types of industries that you can go into. And all of these areas are requiring expertise in research and entomology as well. But within River Bioscience, we are mainly focused on the development, commercialization, and distribution of sustainable crop protection technology. And we focus on key pests that are a problem in South Africa. So yes, while there are other suppliers of products around the world, not all of them focus on pests that are specific to South Africa. And we try to create holistic and accurate programs to use for integrated pest management. And our goal really is just to support the competitiveness and sustainability of high-value crops. So this means that farmers should be able to export their crops overseas and make a good return on them through being able to manage their pests according to requirements. So at the end of the day, we are a commercial company. So the industry that I'm involved in is, although related to what Kayla was talking about, is quite different because we're actually a supplier. So places like, or industries like SAMAC or the CGA or hawk grow, etc., will be doing research on our products as a supplier to see how well they work. And then obviously doing bioprospecting, etc. But our goal as a company really is at the end of the day to sell our products, and the product development and innovation department that I oversee is trying to figure out, can we create new products based on what farmers want and need? So these are just a couple of the examples. You may or may not have heard of them if you work in the citrus industry, but our big focus is virus, and then we've got other sustainable products like mating disruption and baiting technologies. Okay, we also work with partners around the world. So one of these partners is a Kenyan company called Dudutech that's owned by Bioline, which is based in France. So the reason why I just put this up here is because it shows how industry can actually connect you with various different groups and partners all around the world. So this means that we've had opportunities to travel to Kenya, and we will be going to France later on in the year as well. Okay, so these are just fungus products that are provided by our Kenyan partner. So what role does our product development and innovation department play within River Bioscience? And mostly we form the backbone of development of new products and research on new products, as well as registering products for sale in the market. So we have a link to our production team. Our production teams are based in Addo, and then we have one in Citrusdal. The Citrusdal production team is mostly focused on our sterile insect technique, and it's called Exit. For those of you who don't know, that's what the logo looks like. And then we also have a link to our sales team, because we need to be able to teach our sales team how to sell the products in the best way possible, to provide technical support in field, and then assist in developing an integrated management program. And then also, as Kayla mentioned, there's strong finance and HR component in industry. So we provide a supporting function and vice versa for them. And then as well as the quality control department, the project department, and the marketing department. So you can see that for industry, you do need to have a very good teamwork ethic because you're involved in multiple aspects of the business. So what do we mostly do in product development and innovation? Well, we really focus on trying to identify new insects that are of concern to the farmers that we work with. So understanding what do they need to try and control pests to the best of their ability and which pests are most problematic for them. Once we've done this and we've identified an insect that we would like to work with, then we go out and we do sampling and collecting for these different insects so that we can bring them back into our labs and so that we can culture them or create colonies of these insects. We need to be able to do this in order to study the types of pest management tools that we can use against these insects. So whether it be predators and parasitoids or a fungus or a bacteria or a virus, you need to be able to culture and create colonies of the insects you're interested in order to continue this work. Once we've sort of continued this work, we have to make a decision as to whether we want to actually pursue a potential product, so a pest or disease, a disease or a predator or parasitoid. And this is mostly based on whether it's going to be commercially viable. Are the insects easy to rear? Can we do it in high quantities? Can we do it at a mass scale? So can it be upscaled to a commercial setting? Once that happens, we basically now have to develop data and analyze data on how effective these different potential control mechanisms work against the insect. So this involves obviously doing a lot of field work. It also involves doing a lot of lab-based work on, for instance, the phys-chem properties of a product. We also have to send products off to be tested to make sure that we can consistently produce that product, for instance. And we have to do tests to make sure there's no non-target effects of different products. So there's a lot of different steps involved in taking something that you've now identified as being a potential control mechanism for a pest to actually having it commercialized and then registered in the field. But at the end of the day, I know this is a cliche, but knowledge really is power, because you can't develop good pest management strategies for different pests unless you have a good understanding of their life cycle and the things that impact them in the field. And then can you actually use those products in the field? Are they persistent and do they work effectively on the crops that you're targeting? But at every stage of this, we need different expertise. And this is really where I think people don't understand the opportunities that lie in industry, because there's lots of different aspects that we are involved in that require people who know microbiology, for instance, people who have field experience, people who know what the regulatory frameworks, etc. are. So it's not a one size sort of fits all job market, should I say. But while we're doing this, we're also looking at product launches and technical training. As I mentioned, we've got a couple of photos here of showing agents and various farmers how to use different products. We also tell them how to use other companies' products in conjunction with ours. So how to integrate. We do oral communication and collaboration. So this is my colleague here, Evan, presenting at ESSA, and then a lot of trial setup and data collection and in-field support. So this is a new product that we were trialing out over here, and then obviously a lot of monitoring and fruit collections as well. So yeah, like I said, many different aspects that we're involved in as part of the fruit industry. So I'm going to wrap up. Sorry, Ashley, I'm sure you're on your toes there. But I'm going to wrap up with a bit of industry, a career, what are the cons of being embarking on a career in industry, and then what are the pros. So in terms of comparison to the academic world, in industry, there is a bit of a loss in flexibility. You do have to do an 8 to 5 p.m. day every day. This can be a bit of a shock to the system for a new university graduate, as a graduate or as a university student, you're mostly focusing on just 1 or 2 projects. You can, as long as you're getting your work done, you can be flexible with your hours. But in industry, it's much more focused amount of time that you have to be spending at work and making sure that the goals of the company are being met. You also don't have flexibility in which projects you work on, because at the end of the day, we have to work on projects that satisfy what the company needs in terms of product sales and development. You also can't share everything. So I wasn't able to talk about a lot of the projects that we're currently working on now in terms of research, because intellectual property is a big concern. So when we do present at ESSA, etc., we have to go through a vetting process to make sure that we're not sharing any industry secrets. And this can be a little bit frustrating, because firstly, if you want to work on something because you're just interested in it, you can't do that. And then if you want to collaborate, it makes collaborating not impossible, but a bit more difficult, because you have to just follow the steps of securing your intellectual property. In terms of the industry, the workload is quite heavy. There's for myself, I have to manage different teams of different people, which can be difficult, in terms of just making sure that everybody is doing what they need to do, and making sure that different personalities, etc., are able to work together. So that management aspect is a really big learning curve. In industry, there is a lot of road work and paperwork. So by road work, I mean, we're in a production setting. So that means that certain work streams have to be done repeatedly. You're doing the same thing day in, day out. And then obviously with the paperwork, you have to document a lot. Quality control is a very big deal. And with that, there's a lot of administration. You'll tend to have to there's multiple projects and work streams going on at the same time with very quick timelines. It's very different from research, where you go much more in depth and your timelines are longer. Whereas here we have to take a shallower look at everything and do very quick timelines. Make sure we're generating enough data to make a decision, and then move on. So we call it But that means that you don't always get to complete projects how you would want to, which was touched on as well. The regulatory timelines can also be quite frustrating. So you do all of this hard work with these really strict timelines to be able to build a dossier on how effective a potential product is. And then you have to submit that to the government for regulatory purposes. But once you've submitted that, it can take anywhere between 3 and 10 years to have a product registered. So you do all of this work up front, and then you just got to sit back basically and wait to see if your work is going to pay off. And that can be a bit frustrating in the agricultural industry for people who aren't used to that regulatory requirement. And then sales. So at the end of the day, you do have to sell your product, and this does come with quite a bit of pressure. If you're making the switch to industry, especially a commercial industry, just consider that there will be that pressure during the season to actually make your forecasted sales for the year. Customer interactions when they aren't happy can also be very difficult, especially someone coming out of a research background. If you're in research, people don't often approach you as if you have a set agenda. Whereas if you're coming from a commercial realm, every time you talk to a customer or to a potential stakeholder, they have these preconceptions about what your agenda is as a commercial company. So it can be a little bit interesting and a bit of a struggle sometimes. However, I do feel that the pros outweigh the cons, especially in terms of stability. For stability, you have these salaried positions available for graduates. You can have fixed term or permanent contracts. Obviously with those contracts, there's certain obligations on the part of the industry to make sure that you're not being taken advantage of. There's also other benefits, pension, medical aid assistance, sometimes bonuses, etc. And you don't need to be very grant focused. So as my husband, he's a postdoc, and I know this is something that he struggles with, always having to apply for grants, wait for funding, not being able to proceed with the projects that you want to proceed in because you're waiting for money. That's not as much of a concern in the industry. There's also lots of growth opportunities. We spoke about this a bit earlier in Kayla's talk. There's really that ability to learn how the professional world works and how business itself works. getting experience in things like budget management, HR, etc., and really that networking and collaboration aspect as well. Through my time at River Bioscience, I've really met so many different people, all the way from farmers in the field to, you know, the International Atomic Energy Agency in Austria. So, you know, when you work in industry, a lot of different people want to know the types of things that you're working on, trying to pull you into different projects that they're focused on to try and understand how do we get integrated pest management applied in South African farming situations. So that provides a lot of opportunity for network and collaboration. It's also a very dynamic work experience. I mentioned this previously. There's multiple projects at once focusing on you know, different insects, different cropping environments, different diseases, parasitoids, predators, etc. And this means that there's opportunities to learn about new systems and really increase your knowledge in a very short amount of time. There's also a lot of travel opportunities depending on which areas that we're working with. So I get to travel to the Western Cape a lot, as well as Mpumalanga, Limpopo, KZN, but also international travel. And the research really has a direct outcome. And this is very exciting for me, you know, being able to see what you're working on being applied in the field. It doesn't always happen smoothly or very quickly, depending on the registration. But once something that you've spent a lot of time and effort and sweat and tears on is actually being used by a farmer to achieve pest management in his crop, it's a very gratifying experience. And I really love that practical aspect of working in industry. I'm very fortunate that I'm able to maintain some research outputs. You know, at River Bioscience, we try to, you know, provide our staff with opportunities to study further, for example. So I am supervising a master's student who's working for us currently. And then also just providing opportunities to other students. You know, we do obviously employ, and being able to see someone flourish in their chosen field is awesome. To round off, I just want to note that you don't actually have to have a PhD to work in the industry. A PhD is great for certain purposes, but, you know, a lot of people that we work with have a master's or even a BSc or BSc honors in our industry. So it depends on where you want to be in the industry. But there are so many different types of jobs that you can be involved in the agricultural industry, whether it be with a grower type association or with a commercial company. These are just some of the job titles that we have in our company, but the options are endless. And whether it's something like a business development engineer or project manager or an administrator, you know, these are things that don't necessarily have an entomological output, but because we're working in agriculture, because it's so important to have that technical background, any person with entomology who wants to go into this field and perhaps are you know, have a little bit of background in other fields can bring that entomological knowledge to any type of job role that we would provide, if that makes sense. And then finally, I presented my sort of academic and career journey as a single line, you know, smooth process, but it wasn't a smooth process, and no journey is a straight line. Everybody's going to have some ups and downs in their journey. For me, you know, initially I suffered with quite chronic indecision, not knowing what I wanted to do. Once I went into Rose University, you know, I found myself failing subjects for the first time, which was obviously something that was quite difficult to deal with. I had an issue with procrastination, which was really stemmed from a want to be perfect, and led to quite bad imposter syndrome for my master's degree, which meant that it took me a long time to write up my master's degree. And these types of things happen. And when you're struggling with these aspects, it's important to reach out, because just because it's a struggle doesn't mean that you're not good at what you do. And while I was in the US, I was diagnosed with ADHD, which was the reason I struggled with perfectionism for so long and why I struggled with writing up. Once I had that diagnosis, it was much easier for me to actually be able to focus on what I needed to do to enhance my career. And then finally, with balance, you know, with a lot of work load in the industry, it's important to try and balance that workload with your personal life as well. So even though, you know, I've had, I would say, quite a lot of experience in both academia and research and industry, it hasn't always been a smooth process, and it's important to understand that there are do's and don'ts, you know, that can enhance your career. So these are just some take-home lessons that I have learned along the way, and maybe you guys can use some of this for your own purposes. But first is be passionate and curious. You know, Martin Hill, in his recent talk for SABO, said, be an expert in something. If you're interested in it, you know, don't be afraid to actually pursue that. Be curious, you know, just because you're doing, you know, marine sciences in my example, doesn't mean that you can't switch over to entomology at a later stage. Pause and think about your decisions, and focus on work that has a purpose, you know, so don't just launch into something just because it's there. My next one is just submit the application. So there's lots of opportunities for funding, for grants, for awards, and for studying in other parts of the world. And a lot of people, myself included, worry that we're not going to be good enough. But just submit the application. You never know what's going to happen. I would encourage everybody to try and find a good mentor, and then look for those opportunities. You know, go to the conferences, go to the workshops, get out there and network. And then finally, learn to talk about your work. It's very important that you're able to take what you've learned and apply it out in the world. And then lean on your fellow colleagues and students. You know, they know exactly what you're going through when you're struggling with your research or in your studies. So for the don'ts, don't be afraid. Sorry, this hasn't. There we go. For the don'ts, don't be afraid to make changes. It's okay to quit or try something new when what you're doing is not suitable for you, or if you're struggling. You know, don't get stuck in just one lane. There's opportunities to diversify your career path, and you never know where that's going to take you. Don't just do something because it's there. You know, a lot of people just do a PhD because it's the easy next step from an MSc. But think about it quite hard if you're making that decision, and you know, again, do something with a purpose. Don't let your fear of failure stop you from trying. You know, for me, this was just submitting my thesis, even though I felt like it wasn't perfect yet. And following on from that, don't buy into perfection. It really doesn't exist. We all want our research to be the best, but getting something done versus striving for perfection is really what we want to aim for. Just try and wrap up your questions that you have regarding your research. Don't try too much to strive for perfection. Don't keep quiet when you're struggling. You know, reach out for people, for help and for guidance. You know, don't be afraid to message people or professors that you're interested in, to really ask for guidance on your career path and what you might be interested in, especially if you want to go into industry. I would say to approach every leadership opportunity that you have, and then other opportunities to be more involved, you know, doing outreach, being more involved in sort of groups like ESSA, and that really will allow you to network more effectively. And then don't bite off more than you can chew. This is something that I always have to learn, because it's easy to just accept more and more work without really achieving the final product. So, you know, you want to be realistic with your timelines. You want to try and meet deadlines when you set them for yourself, because it gives you that sense of achievement. So yeah, those are just my lessons that I have learned and I'm continuing to learn. And with that, I would like to say thank you. And then I also wanted to point out that my email address is down here. If anybody ever wants to reach out to me about what it's like to work in agriculture, please feel free. And, you know, we do hire researchers and entomologists here at River Bioscience. So if you would like to send me your CV, you are welcome to. Thank you. Sorry for taking so long, Ash.
Thank you, Megan. I think you have such a rich experience, and I really wanted to just let you go and share that with everybody, especially the students, because I know there's a lot of anxiety around careers, which is the purpose of these webinars. So I am happy for you to have shared your whole story. Thank you so much. It was thorough. You've actually covered all the questions that I wanted to ask afterwards. So we don't need to do that part. But thank you so much. And to Kayla, she had to drop off, but I think you both shared such useful, rich information, and I really hope that everybody took something from that. For the participants, please feel free. We are over time. Feel free to drop off if you need to run. If there are any questions, I will stay on the line a little bit. Megan, I don't know if you are also available to stay on for questions if there are any coming through. But thank you all for joining us. And please do use the link to the feedback form that's in the chat box. I think the second link is easier to access. But I thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to the next one. And please do share with us what you are interested in topic-wise. Thanks very much.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to stay on, Ashley, if there are any questions.
Perfect. Sinead has a hand up. Yeah, I hope that you can unmute. I think you can.
Yes, I can. This is basically not more of a comment, Zach, than a question. So, firstly, thanks to both speakers for what I think was really some really fantastic talks. But the thing that I wanted to highlight that both of you have brought up is that when we start when we go into any sort of science career, it's not like another career other careers where they say, oh, you're becoming a medical doctor, you need to do this degree, do your residency, or you're becoming a lawyer, you need to go on this path. There is for science, there's not that many there aren't as many prescriptive things as there are in other fields. So it was really nice to see both you guys showing that it's not necessarily that this opportunity for diversity is not necessarily a con, and that even though there's no prescribed path, it does mean that you have a lot of opportunities to go and explore things that you haven't had before. So I'd like to thank the both of you guys for really bringing that home and for showing both the pros, for highlighting both the pros and cons. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. And yeah, I agree with that. Diversifying your skill set can be really important for industry. And I know I've spoken a lot about agriculture, but there's a lot of other industries out there that can be appropriate for entomologists as well. So if you want to be focused more on the sales side, there's also opportunities there. There's, if you're going into the bee industry, for example, if you're going into medical and veterinary industry, which I know, Ashley, you've had experience in, there are various opportunities in industry. And I think, yeah, reaching out and asking people about that, and then trying to give yourself some additional skills, especially soft skills, is really important.
Megan, there is a question in the Q&A section. If I can just read it to you.
Yeah.
There's a question about what is the cutting edge methods or technologies that are fascinating at the moment in your sector, and how are you bridging the gap between farmers and researchers?
Yeah, so there is quite a few different types of technology. So something that we've been focusing on at River Bio is using artificial intelligence, mostly for being able to quantify and provide quality control for the different products that we work on. So with biological control products, it can be very difficult to actually quantify, making sure that you're delivering a good quality product. And we've been using AI tools to, help to train models on how to count the organisms that we work with. Because QC is a very tedious, very rote process, and any opportunity that we have to make it quicker and make it more effective and more reliable is something that we really are focusing on. And then we show the farmers and the industries that we work in how we use that to provide good quality products. Another technology that is gaining a lot of momentum is drone use. So yeah, we're looking at opportunities on how to do application of some of our products via drones. Again, with biological control agents, it's not always a smooth process, and that requires a lot of research. Farmers are very interested in this and are always willing to be involved in that. And then in terms of bridging the gap, for me, it's keeping connection with the different universities that River Bioscience has worked with in the past, both to use as third-party verification for our various products and to identify and work on new research, so new technologies on how we better formulate our viruses, for example. So yeah, there's obviously a lot of types of that sort of technology that are involved in the actual production process. But keeping in contact with the researchers, having students help us work on that, the projects are done, and then disseminating it to farmers is how we try to bridge the gap. I hope that answers the question.
Super. Yeah, that made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
There was another question addressed to Kayla. I wonder if you can tackle it, since it's also on the topic of agriculture. Someone asked, is training as an entomologist enough, or is additional training in the agriculture sector advisable? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm trained as an entomologist, just based, as pure as can be. I did basically all of my degrees in entomology. So I do think that it is enough, but it's becoming more and more competitive now in the sector that we work with, and they are actually looking for entomologists in the various different industries. So I think that while it's enough, I think that everybody should really try to expand their skill base. Definitely people who have had presenting opportunities and people who have worked in the field who've been able to disseminate their information to farmers. I think that those are two very good skills to have. Another skill is obviously statistics. Statistics was a big thorn in my side for a long time, but really, we live and die on data, basically. So having those skills can be very important. It's not a be-all and end-all, but it will really make you more attractive in terms of the job market if you're looking to go into industry. And then any sort of other business-orientated experience that you can get. So, I have one or two friends who, did BSc type related degrees with a focus in economics, for example, and they're doing really, really well right now. So any sort of area that maybe you're interested in that you can see is applicable, just getting a little bit of experience in that, or even maybe doing an external course or two, that can be very helpful. But really, there is so much opportunities for entomologists at the moment.
That's fantastic to hear, because I think a lot of the times we think there's no jobs out there. We finish off degrees and then kind of feel like floating. I mean, I know I feel like that a lot of the time. So it's really encouraging to hear that there's actually quite a lot of opportunity out there for our expertise, which are quite niche for the most part. So that's really great.
Yeah, I think as our agricultural industry moves more and more towards alternative pest control, habitat management, cultural control, and biological control, these types of methods for pest management work really well, but they require a lot of knowledge. It's not just a spray and pray, as they used to say. It's you need those people with the technical background, and that's where our entomologists are sort of invaluable, knowing how to employ these tactics in the best way possible.
Super. Right, that is the end of the questions. Oh, sorry, not the end of the questions. Sorry, there is one more. Elizabeth, you can go ahead if you're able to unmute.
Hello.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Elizabeth. I'm also the entomologist. Currently,
Yes.
I'm studying my master's, and I'm focusing on the biological control. So I'm so interested in the product is which you have shown there. But I have the question, because also I come from the background of the sugarcane production. So The challenge which we have in our country, it is about the issues of the pests and diseases, especially we have the yellow sugarcane aphids, had a big disaster. And also currently we have the thrips. They are also very, very destructive in the sugarcane production. So I'm very interested for the product which you have been shown. Is this product can it be used for the large scale production or just for the small scale production?
Yeah, the nice thing with biological control and the types of products that we use, they are used on commercial scale. And that's, why there has been a push for more entomologists in the field, because as more commercial farmers use it, they need more information about how it can be applicable to their practices. But Elizabeth, if you take my email down, you're welcome to contact me about the product specifically. But yes, these types of products are used commercially.
Sorry, can you share it again? I didn't catch it. Oh, my sorry.
That's okay. I will put it in the chat if that's okay. So just have a look at the chat. I'll put my email there.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
There we go. Awesome.
Perfect, yeah. If there are any other questions, we'll hang on for one moment. Otherwise, I think we can start to head off. Thank you so much again, Megan. This was really wonderful to chat with you, and I hope that we can have another session like this again sometime in the future, and all the best to you with all your work.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for listening in and for staying a bit extra.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.